How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to the channel today. We're going to be discussing Xbox. I've done a couple videos on Xbox throughout the time, and recently on the channel here, more so recently discussing their price increases and why I didn't think it was a good thing, and they're the first company to kind of follow Nintendo down that dark path, particularly for the games, obviously, which should be in around December, it seems like, for $80 increases for big parties. But I more so wanted to talk about what does the future hold for Xbox? What is the future for Xbox? I mean, because it's a bit of a complicated situation. It's not pretty clear cut here, and it's a bit complicated as to what their exact strategy is going to be moving forward. Because in the past, like couple of years, I guess, we've seen a concerted effort from Xbox to open up their platform. And what I mean by that is obviously their exclusives. That's the main part of it, offering all their games and a lot of their services, not just on Xbox, but a big, push to offer them on PC, which is another thing, and even start offering a lot of their games and all their big first-party stuff onto the PlayStation. And I can't remember exactly how much they share with the Switch and everything in that regard, but I'd have to imagine having, not a ton of familiarity with their catalog, but some, that Xbox definitely has a concerted effort trying to get their games and such onto Nintendo platforms as well. We've seen a huge opening up of Xbox. It is no longer this closed off, gaming console ecosystem like something like Nintendo, or even still like PlayStation, honestly, in a lot of ways, even though they've, opened up the PC quite a bit but they're still timed exclusives and everything. It's a bit of a different situation with PlayStation and Sony over there. Xbox is much less concerned about any exclusivity whatsoever. You can play all of their games now on Xbox, on PC, essentially. Most of a lot of their big games and stuff are now coming to PlayStation. It just seems kind of odd because as a console manufacturer, you have to have some selling point for your console, right? You have to have some reason for people to want to buy an Xbox, at least over like a Nintendo or over a Steam Deck or a PC or over a PlayStation, most importantly. And there, apart from maybe Game Pass being like a really good deal right now and everything, what exactly is that selling point? And even for Game Pass, you don't need an Xbox for it. There's an entire thing for Xbox Game Pass PC, so that's also multi-platform, and I think that's the way they want it. Like they would put Game Pass on the PlayStation or Nintendo if they let them, you know. And maybe if they pulled back the online services or something, just offered it as like an additional add-on or something. Maybe we will see that at at some point, anyways, but not now. But yeah, that's maybe the only selling point for Xbox, apart from like being a loyal, diehard Xbox fan like myself, which I mean, I'm not anymore or anything. Like, I'm not gonna just blindly buy an Xbox just because that's what I've played throughout the ages here. But maybe that has a little to do with it too. But regardless, there's just not a ton of selling points, it would seem, for Xbox in general, and that's a problem for console sales. How do you justify buying an Xbox console over a PlayStation or something when they, when the exclusives and everything are off of Xbox? Why not get a PlayStation where I can play all the Xbox games? And on top of that, after I get those, I have all the Xbox and I have all the PlayStation games. And, yeah, why wouldn't I just do that? Or why wouldn't I get a PC or more importantly, like a Steam Deck, honestly, especially with the price and everything, be able to play Steam games and PC games, and also the PC or also the PlayStation exclusives that eventually get ported over there after about a year or so. What is the draw to Xbox? And it's a hard sell, and it really is at this point. And we've also been noticing, what does the next generation hold for Xbox? Are they going to be another console or not? Is it going to be a console or is it going to be something really weird? Are they doing it at all? My money would say, since I'm a betting man, I would say they're going to do another console. But unless they change something drastically from what they've been doing in the past console generations, or just a regular console, I don't know exactly why somebody would buy it. It's kind of confusing to me. They can't just release a regular console again next generation and expect it to, result well for them. They've been losing these last two generations doing exactly that, particularly this last generation, and they haven't been on top or been, dominant since the 360 era. And that's just the cold hard facts, unfortunately, for them. They need to do something. And there's been a lot of talks of like, oh, this is going to be like, it's going to be more PC. Like, we don't have a ton of information right now, but there's been a lot of like rumors and stuff that it's going to be more PC like than it is console, or that it's going to include Steam somehow, as they've been in talks of Steam and such, um, or like what is going to look like. Because inherently, essentially, what is the difference between a PC and a console? They all have the same, basic components essentially. The only difference is a console is much more closed off, like ecosystem that's running, the PlayStation or the, Nintendo Switch or the Xbox OS and, interface and everything, instead of like Windows essentially, which that's an entire rabbit hole. I wish we had like Steam OS and Xbox and PlayStation OS and stuff for like a key that I could download on my fucking computer for gaming, because I would way rather run that than Windows. But regardless, what's it going to look like? In my opinion, for a new console generation, they can't just make a console, like a video game console, like they've been doing in the past few generations. They need to add some stuff, both accessory wise and fundamentally into the console. Accessory wise, like they've just released the handheld. I think they need to do another handheld, like a Windows handheld thing, that can do a lot of stuff like that for the next generation. And then on the console, they need to make an Xbox console, but on top of that, they need to have like access to a lot of different storefronts on there. Like they need to have access to like Steam or Epic Games Store or Battle.net, stuff like that. These big, especially since they own Activision Blizzard now with that, you think that'd be somewhat, easy to put into an Xbox or something. But I don't know. Maybe not. I don't really know. They need to add those to that. They need to have the handheld or whatever in the console. Like that would be appealing to me. It's like at that point, it's essentially a budget PC with a different operating system and an interface, and it's somewhat similar to a Steam Deck that isn't as portable and I guess is more powerful since it's like a full stand console. I don't really know. It's kind of confusing, and this entire situation is kind of confusing in general as to where Xbox goes. Because if they don't do anything, if they don't change much, they might as well just stop becoming a console manufacturer and essentially become like a accessories or a handheld or a software and game development company or all of the above, because there's no reason to make a console like the Xbox Series X again. And even if it is more powerful than the PlayStation alternative, why would I buy that? It's not going to be a big enough difference or leap for me to justify, like, oh yeah, this guy. I know this console doesn't have a lot of exclusives or a lot of things going for it other than Game Pass and the tech in here, but I just really need it or whatever. And it's like I don't know. For me, it's a confusing thing of where Xbox goes from here. And they've been pretty cryptic as far as the next console generation, or maybe not even cryptic, just like hasn't been a priority yet, obviously. Especially with the new handheld being released, which I think looks cool, but I don't know. Part of me is like, it's cool because it's a handheld, like, but it's not just running Windows. It's got this like Xbox interface, and it should be able to download a lot of these popular PC storefronts. Like that handheld is the handheld version of the console. I think they should make next generation, and they should have like almost like the PlayStation, Portal, or if they do another PSP or Vita or whatever, that is what they should do. The next generation is try to murk the waters and blur the lines as to what draws the line between a console and a PC, and try to integrate as much features and Game Pass and everything onto the console. I think that's the smartest way forward for Xbox, because at the heart of it, Nintendo is the best setup for the future to survive like as a traditional console. Their consoles are a bit more gimmicky and have a bit more weird and like unique features that helps them. But the main thing is Nintendo has remained a pretty closed off, very exclusive and guarded ecosystem really forever. There's legally speaking, anyways, there's only one place to play Zelda and Mario Kart and I understand Wii Sports, but like Nintendo Sports or whatever. It's on Nintendo platforms. That's the only way to legally and first party play it, and that ecosystem, and that's what they're developed for and everything, and that's the console environment that they've really fostered here over the years. And you know my thoughts about Nintendo if you're a follower of the channel. I don't think they've, I think a lot of their company policies have been very greedy, not very consumer friendly and stuff like that and all that. But at the same time, I'm under the map here. I just realized that. But at the same time, Nintendo has done a good job of like fostering that environment essentially. And from a business standpoint, been the most like arguably speaking, if you took away all the issues with the Switch 2 and the stuff they've been doing and everything, if you just look at it like a, you know, I was just saying unobjective, but it's hard to look at it in a very positive light in my opinion. If you just look at it from a surface level, there's the most reason to get a new Nintendo console over a console like the Xbox or like the PlayStation, where why don't you just get a PC or Steam Deck at that point? Because you'll be able to play their games on Steam or on, PC in general. PC has a lot of exclusives too, and it's the same reason why I think a lot of people play that because there's a lot of games on there. Those are the two things you could objectively have and play the vast majority of really every game that ever comes out is have a PC and have a Nintendo Switch 2 now. Those are what you kind of need to play really every game outside of maybe like sports games. That's the big kicker of what's going to. I think that's one of the things that consoles have done well is continuously been the best place to play sports games, both because it's better on controller, but that's obviously you can plug it into a PC, so that's not even a big thing. But the communities are bigger, especially if they don't have like cross-play between like generations. Like sometimes PC's old gen and the consoles are new gen or something. It's kind of weird sometimes with that. But also like College Football 25 for an anecdotal point there isn't available on PC, and that's a big deal for a lot of people. Another thing, a very small cherry picked point, but is it at this point? GTA 5 might not release on the PC for, a year after it released on console. That's a big deal. I know it's one game and not a game that everybody will play, but it is probably the biggest and most anticipated game of all time. And what people are hoping is a generational game. Having that as a timed exclusive for console in general for a year, big deal. Very big deal. But yeah, I mean, generally, just objectively looking of how do I play the most games and have the best experience and have the most diversity in games and everything. You want a Nintendo Switch 2 and you want a PC. As much as I have problems with Nintendo Switch 2, that's objectively the truth, especially as they, release more games onto it. Because legally speaking, you can't play those games anywhere else. And there's a lot of games that are only ever developed and made for PC that aren't really ever ported over to console, unfortunately. And it's just a sad reality. A lot of strategy games, a lot of indie games, and a lot of just PC games in general, where it's unfortunate, but console players just never get their hands on it. I mean, that's kind of the thing there. I think for consoles in general to survive, I think PlayStation has a bit more of an exclusivity thing, so maybe they can milk that a little harder for the next generation too. But for Xbox, you need to blur the lines between like exclusivity and being able to play games where like the whole Xbox Play Anywhere thing needs to not just be Xbox games, but it needs to be like, oh, this console coming out by Xbox, I can play any game like from PC, I can play any game from Xbox. Try to get as much deals and stuff with Sony as you can for their games. Like, try to blur those lines as much as possible and deliver the best machine with Game Pass, which I think is the best deal in gaming right now. That's, in my opinion, the path forward for what you need to do to survive. And then offer a handheld variety too. Offer a console, like the PlayStation 4, like that's the way forward. Try to, blur those lines as much as possible and hope for the best. I think that's the best because do you want a device where you can play, they say play anywhere. Having a device where I could play anything on that device and on that ecosystem would be great. But I mean, I think that's the way forward. And I've been very, pessimistic about Xbox and X consoles somewhat to some degree. I don't think console gaming is going anywhere. The simplicity of it, the lack of headaches, not having to run Windows, not having to have a million launchers. Like, there's a lot of reasons consoles, people prefer console, and that console's a much more stress-free and more relaxed and casual gaming environments and thing. Sure, it can't output the same thing as like a $5,000 PC or something, but it offers a very good gaming experience with a lot less headaches and a much, better operating system that's not fucking Windows. Unless you have a Steam Deck, then I think that a lot of those problems are kind of alleviated, honestly, in that regard. But I think consoles are still, have staying power for that reason. But I just think Xbox in particular, that's the path forward. Is try to blur those lines as much as possible. Do what I've been saying. I think that's where Xbox goes. The whole play anywhere thing. It's not just that you can play Xbox games anywhere. I think that they want to make a device and an ecosystem where you can play stuff anywhere, whether it's Xbox games, whether it's third-party games in general, whether it's PC games, and have the Steam storefront and stuff, and try to get as much crossover from PlayStation, because Nintendo's not going to do it, but try to get as much crossover from PlayStation as you physically can and support for them. That's where I think, and offer Game Pass and offer a good machine to play games on. That's where I think Xbox's future lies. That's if they want to stay in the console and like the device and ecosystem and hardware industry at all. If they don't want to do that and just get out of it entirely and like just kind of, have Game Pass and be a console or be like a software and a fucking service offer and a game developer and everything, that's a different thing. But that's, I think, if you're going to stay in the console game, that's, I think, what you need to do. Or maybe they can move the handheld and like be a Steam Deck and Switch competitor where it's like, oh, look at this handheld, and you can display it on the TV too and plug into a controller and Xbox or plug in with a controller or a mouse and keyboard or something. Those are the one and 1B routes I think you take as Xbox, and that's how I think you make a market for yourself and carve out a spot in the industry for yourself moving forward. I don't know. Maybe that will work. Maybe it won't. Even if you do make it there, like, wouldn't I just still get a PlayStation because I have the PlayStation stuff, the timed exclusives earlier. I have all the Xbox stuff. But then again, I think the PC access is a much bigger deal than people make it out to be. Especially because they own Activision Blizzard. That's a big storefront. If they seem much better coordination with Steam and Valve, obviously, than PlayStation is. Having the PC access could really be a big opener to an Xbox ecosystem. I mean, yeah, that's just a huge deal. And I don't know. Is it like, by that point, do I just go to PC instead or get a Steam Deck instead? Because then I get the best of every world, and I can still buy a Steam Deck or buy a PC if I want something higher. Like, I don't know. It is a really tricky situation they put themselves into for the future of their consoles and stuff. And I think a betting man, like if I went onto a betting site and they were able to have betting odds for this and stuff for the future, I'd say that most people would be heavily on PlayStation side for winning the next generation and having better value and offerings for what they can bring to the table instead, and whose console you should buy, or switching the PC maybe is a better option or something. But I just think that's a plausible or maybe achievable way somewhat for Xbox to stay in the game. But yeah, let me know what you think about that. Let me know what you think about Xbox in general and what they should do or what they should do to stay relevant, to stay in the game, what their next generation should look like, where they should go from where they are right now. I'd love to hear your thoughts too. Those are just my preliminary thoughts and my thoughts in general on that whole situation. But yeah, definitely let me know what y'all think. I'd be very interested to hear that for sure. And if you enjoyed the video on the channel and like these gaming takes and the reviews I do and all this gaming stuff I do, I encourage you to like and subscribe. It helps out the channel a lot and it's very much appreciated. But yeah, that's about it for today, and I'll see you guys later. Peace.